Hi, my name's Kevin. I'm 36 years old. I came out when I was 29, and I'm going to share my story of the process of coming out with you. There's really no correct way, of course, to come out, and everyone's is going to be a little different. Mine was very planned, but that was my personality and my circumstances. So, way early on, I knew that I was attracted to men, but I assumed it was a curiosity thing. And I was a late bloomer, so I was just curious what would happen when I finally did bloom. That lasted for over 15 years, but I kept thinking, oh, I'll just find the right girl and this will all disappear. Except it didn't. So I didn't grow up in a homophobic family, and I didn't go to a fire and brimstone church growing up, but, I'm fairly sure there were just unspoken social norms that influenced this ongoing denial. I also think that a large part of it was that I was afraid of disappointing family and disappointing my friends. So for me, there were really two parts to the coming out. There was the acceptance of it internally, and then actually telling other people. And I think that that's probably true of most people, and you really have to do it in that order. Your acceptance is the first and most important step, and then how you choose to be a gay man or woman and who you choose to be as a gay man or woman is really up to you. So when I finally said, okay, I'm gay, I decided I wasn't going to tell anyone. It would be my secret to carry to the grave, and my lot in life was to be a loner. Of course, that led to me feeling very isolated and very sad. And I just moved to a new city, and so my friend network was very limited. So on yet another routine Friday night, I was doing laundry and crossword puzzles, and realized I didn't want to be a lonely, old, bitter man who was ironing shirts and filling in the blanks of a crossword puzzle. So I decided to tell some friends of mine that I had made, a gay couple, and they sort of took me under their wing and introduced me to people, and I made friends, and it was the first step in the sort of external coming out. Then after that, it was time to tell family, and that was really the most difficult. I had fears of being rejected, kicked out of the family, being hated and despised and loathed, every synonym you can think of. Those all went through my mind. In retrospect, I had no basis for any of them, but they were real feelings. I can remember having them, and that led to an overwhelming sense of fear. So I first told my sister, and when I told her I couldn't say I am gay, I said, I'm not going to give you a sister-in-law. Once she figured out what I meant, she was relieved. She thought I was telling her I was dying of cancer or something, and she was so much happier to know that it was just that I was gay. But I didn't, after we had talked, I said, you can't tell anyone, don't tell your husband, don't tell your friends, I really need to be the one that gives this information. That placed an enormous burden on her, and over time I realized that was really unfair to her. So I decided I had to tell the rest of my family. I told my brother and sister-in-law, and then I told my parents. And that was probably the hardest of everyone in the family, because it was them I feared the most of being rejected and being asked to, essentially leave the family. I'd written a letter that I planned to read them 1,000 times. And when I finally got to that moment to read it to them, I just started crying, maybe 3 words into it. And I cried the whole time I read it. And again, looking back, I think it was again that feeling of disappointment. Here's this moment where I'm telling them something about me, something that had for so long been buried inside, and they could in an instant reject me and see me as a disappointment. When I finished, they just walked over to me and hugged me, and I knew that it was going to be okay. We didn't discuss it for a few weeks, which was a little unusual. I thought a little weird, but it's a lot for them to process. Our comfort level has grown about it, and it's another part of me. It's not who I am completely, it's just a part of me. They knew who I was before, and that really hasn't changed. Over time, I've told more and more friends, and made a point to tell my best friends in person, and it became much easier. And I will say that I've been very fortunate that none of my friends and no one in my family has ever rejected me, or I've not faced discrimination or for this. And I know that makes me very lucky, because there are a lot of people out there that don't have that same story. But the one thing that I remind myself is a quote that's been attributed to Dr. Seuss, and I want to leave you with that I think is helpful to keep in mind. Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter won't mind. And if you remind yourself of that, I think you'll find yourself surrounded by people who love all of you, and that's ultimately the most important thing to have.